What is the next milestone? What is the next thing we need to achieve? What is the plan to make it happen?
What was the pivotal moment for you that you decided to stop supporting other founders and just bet on yourself?
There is actually one date, 6th of November 2023. OpenAI launched the GPTs. 10,000 of people were waiting for the product, but we didn't actually market it on time. Everything that we built snapped in one day, like in 24 hours. I started building my confidence. 95% of AI implementation in companies were a complete failure. We have humans that will orchestrate AI agents. One of the main pillars to make a content strategy successful is.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Liam. Thank you. I think that we're going to have a great conversation today.
I already have a very good feeling about it. The vibes were high in the 5 minutes that we've spoken before, so I'm excited. You've gone from the right-hand man at a Web3 education company, chief staff at an AI startup, launching agency GPTs, and then very quickly to launching Earleads. Like, what was the pivotal moment for you that you decided to stop supporting other founders and just bet on yourself?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and I got asked a lot what made me decide to quit the startup environment. Didn't really quit it, but quit it as an employee and start my own agency. And there is actually one date, 6th of November 2023. OpenAI launched the GPTs on their tool, and this is when everything changed personally for me because the startup I was part of, who were actually building something very, very similar to the GPTs, but
Mm.
we had like a stacked waiting list. 10,000 of people were waiting for the product, but we didn't actually market it on time, and we were late to market because of that. And everything that we built snapped in one day, like in 24 hours. And for me, that moment was when I was like, okay, I kind of felt that coming. I wanted to push that product earlier on the market. We might not have succeeded, of course, like there's a lot of assumptions there, but my gut feeling was right. And it didn't happen just once. When you're part of early stage startups, the Web3 startup, the AI startup, I saw a lot of things happen. And every time I was actually building my own thesis of how we should approach things, maybe this could be a better action to do, maybe this should be a better feature to product, maybe this could be a better way to target customers. And eventually, I started building my confidence every time a gut feeling became an actual market validation. And I just had enough of those validations in November 2023 to decide that, okay, it's time for me to bet on myself. And actually, one thing that I did when that feeling became overwhelming, I did something that I tend to do well is write. And I decided to write 10 or 15 pages thesis about my view of entrepreneurship in the coming 5 to 10 years, my view on the development of AI in the 5 to 10 years, and where should a founder be to leverage this at maximum capacity. And the conclusion was quit and build something myself.
If you were to summarize that thread, that 10 to 15 kind of page article, like what are the main sticking points there that you outlined?
Yeah. So first thing is that code is being commoditized, and it's going to be easier for people to build products, but easier being building products becoming easier doesn't mean building products becoming easier to distribute. And that was like the first conclusion for me. It's going to be easier to build products, but it's going to be harder for people to market, to distribute them. Second was about AI, the speed at which AI was going at the time and all the unknown that we've had. So it was that moment where we went from GPT-3 to GPT-4. And once we had GPT-4, it was a crazy breakthrough on the market. And everyone's like, okay, AGI is real, even if we can argue today. It's going to happen. And I started actually being afraid of the speed of the market and me not being able to give myself a chance, and that maybe entrepreneurship in 5 years wouldn't be possible. That was the second conclusion of me at the time. Third was that we are going to shift a lot from um, products to like SaaS as we know it, software as a service, towards SaaS as service as a software. You deliver a service, for example, you build an agency, copywriting agencies, lead gen agencies, SEO agencies, whatever. But all those agencies actually have a crazy leverage 2023, 2024, and even now, adopt AI products, build AI agents, agentify their workflows, and improve their margins, improve their scale, improve their efficiency, improve the quality of their work while still being highly profitable and being able to manage more clients. And for me, that was a sexier business to build than actually go directly into the common SaaS, building a product, trying to get into YC, whatever, raise funds. That wasn't really something I wanted to do at the time. And actually, the fourth one was the whole VC-backed versus bootstrap um, debate that we can see. And I think that we truly need both because it's super hypocritical from people who benefit from VC-backed tools to say that you should go bootstrapped. Well, you couldn't go bootstrapped if VCs and hedge fund didn't throw hundreds of millions of dollars into your favorite B2B AI SaaS tool that supports your company today. But there is actually a lot of value in starting your first business being bootstrapped because you will be so focused on generating cash and you will be so focused on your reputation that there is no chance this don't have a crazy ROI on your career in the future. Whatever you decide to do, if you decide to join another company, if you decide to build another company, starting bootstrapped is going to give you so much leverage in the future that it's definitely one thing you must do. You really learn the value of money and you really learn the value of relationships. And these 4 points were my conclusion that led me to build my first agency at the time.
I want to take a step like behind your mindset through all of what you've mentioned there. What I'm getting a sense of is that you're a very practical individual. When you look at a problem, you're like, what is the actual first principle problem here? What am I trying to solve for? How do I future proof myself? Is that something like, have you always thought that way, or is that something you've had to tune in over time? What's influenced you to think like that?
Yeah, well, actually, I've always been on one part of the spectrum, to be honest. So, was always something that I I use in the way I analyze everything. Like, might be my relationship, might be the way of thinking, might be philosophy, whatever. I've always tried to break down things and try to approach them in a cold way. I do listen to my gut feeling. I do have a gut feeling, and I do have emotions, but I tend to try to break down. Complex challenges into smaller chunks where I can actually put more energy and focus into understanding that. But there is one thing that helped me a lot in my entrepreneur journey. Um, Back when I was in university, I started actually, I wanted to become an entrepreneur, but I didn't have any actual skills. I went to a business school, studied business administration, whatever fancy words we can throw up there, but I didn't learn, yeah, you too. So you know what I mean here. I didn't actually learn um, a specific skill. Like I'm not an architect, I'm not a doctor, I'm not an engineer. So it's always hard for people like us to understand what you can build. We're just like very, very lost and we need a bit of guidance. So one thing that I did at the time was I don't want to learn a skill. I want to learn how to think. I want to learn concepts. I want to build a way of life, a way of thinking that will help me whatever I decide to do in the future. So for 2 years, I consumed so much information and I try to immerse myself in so much notions. I'm going to give you some practical examples. There is one author, his name is Nassim Nicolas Taleb. He wrote a lot of books such as Black Swan, Skin in the Game, Fooled by Randomness. These are very, very dense and complex books that analyzes the world with some specific concepts. I'm going to make it more easy for people to understand here. But going to that path first helped me build some heuristics in how I think that I kept for the rest of my life as of today. I still like when I have a problem, I still analyze it with some of those concepts. Example, being skin in the game. So being skin in the game means that you need to have something to lose when you build something. If we take politicians, for example, they will be part of a government for 5 years. If they don't deliver on their promise, they are still alive after that. They can still work. They can, like, nothing really bad happens to them except a negative impact on their reputation. So, skin in the game means you have something to lose if things don't go right. And so if you put your reputation at stake, for example, when you work with different clients and you really put yourself out there, you are skin in the game. You really want things to succeed. Another thing is black swan. So black swan, the concept of black swan is there are some risks in life that can happen with long tail probability, so very, very, very low probability, 0.00001%. But the probability of occurrence means that you can, like, that you're out, that you're dead, for example. And taking those risks most of the time is not worth it. And you should, when you build a business, try to prevent those risks from happening. If you see that there is a rise, example, you have a copywriting agency. We're in 2022, you have a copywriting agency. You start to see the rise of AI. If you used it a bit or you analyze that a bit, you will understand that your business is at risk. Even if the models were still far, far behind and the probability of them evolving were super low, if we went from GPT-3 to GPT-4, if that happened at the time, it would potentially mean that you go out of business. And so your role as a founder is to try to integrate that solution into your business, is to try to diversify yourself maybe. So maybe launch another offer, maybe use AI to deliver your service, maybe start to build a product, whatever. So Black Swan is actually that. And so there are a lot of books that I read. There are a lot of concepts that I try to understand that help me actually build a way of thinking and a way of solving problems.
It's really interesting you mentioned that. I think I've been listening to a lot of podcasts recently. I don't know if you ever listened to 20 VC by Harry Stebbings. But he interviewed the Cohere founder, who kind of produced baseline LLMs just now. And something he mentioned is that in a couple years' time, a lot of our interactions with AI and with products is just going to be natural language. It's going to be us sitting down at a computer and speaking something. And what that kind of comes down to is what you said as well, is like the specific skill sets of becoming a data analyst or a coder and stuff are going to become less valuable over time. And just being able to think and being able to understand how an LLM thinks are going to become more valuable. And I really want to kind of hammer in on this with you as well. So moving forward, we have this idea that like technology is no longer a moat. Like technology can be developed rapidly. And you mentioned this really interesting balance between building a product versus marketing, and how marketing is harder, more important. Dive deeper into that for me. Like, how do you think about you moving forward, how you're differentiated, and how you've got a moat versus everyone else?
Yeah. So at the time when I decided to quit the AI startup and start my own agency, um, my thesis about building something that I could actually sell was, first, what are my core skills slash which are areas where I have already some credibility that I can showcase and be a proof that I am the right person to deliver that. Spent 2.5 years in AI since we needed to ask OpenAI to get an access to the playground and play with the early models of GPT. I managed multiple acquisition channels during my years in the early stage startup environments. And I knew how to talk to early stage founders because I actually spent every day with them. And so my first mode slash positioning here was to build something at the intersection of lead generation, early stage businesses, and AI. This is how I came up with agency GPTs. Last component here is temporality and context, like the actual context you're evolving in. The GPTs were just out, and I saw an opportunity there to standardize copywriting workflows, so anything related to content creation, and standardize outreach workflows, which ultimately is also linked to copywriting. So how you write messages to start a conversation with someone. Early stage businesses struggle with standardization and streamlining those processes, making them more efficient. And founders of early stage companies actually have to spend some time, not just on the acquisition part, but on building the product, on raising funds, on hiring top talent. So there is a need for them to streamline this part of their business. So that was my initial thesis. And my argument and my moat was I was part of early stage startups. I'm not a freelancer that just worked with a bit of client and is trying to propose lead generator services. I do not just understand lead generation. I understand product, I understand sales, I understand marketing. I'm heads down into the early stage struggles that you might be experiencing, which made it very easy for me to actually start conversations with people because we spoke the same language. That's so important. Whatever people that listen to us decide to do, they decide to build a business sometime, try to start in an area where it's going to be easy for you to be understood, because there is nothing worse than switching. Imagine if I started to build AI workflows with for doctors, having zero experience, not knowing how to exchange with them, not knowing how to outreach them. It was going to be it was going to be a failure, like 100%. So that was really my mode, is to focus on the uniqueness I've built through my experiences and use that as a leverage if I was going to be compared to uh, an agency, a freelancer, or a SaaS, for instance. So that's how I approached it, and this was the actual thought process I went through.
Obviously, part of that is that you've went through the experience yourself. You've got the depth and the expertise there. But why do you think you're so attracted to working specifically with early stage startup founders? Why not mid stage? Why not go for VCs? Why not go for anything else? What is it about them?
Yeah. So um, at that time, it was imposter syndrome because I didn't experience hyperscale. Um, Small teams, less than 10 people, both startups I was part of. So my thought process at the time was, I will at some point target mid-stage companies, but it will only happen through scaling those companies we work with. If they scale and we succeed in delivering our service and everything goes well, ultimately they will grow. And if they grow, we will experience what hyperscale means, which is going to give us a case study. And if we have this case study, we can target other companies in the same stage and be like, hey, we did it for this company, we can do it for you. But what happened actually is that naturally this happened, but also on our side, we started to understand a bit more challenges experienced by bigger businesses through inbound conversations. Because if you put yourself out there, if you create content, if you're present, and if you uh, attack a problem in a smart way, you will get some inbound, you want it or not. And it's not always going to be super qualified as you want it to be. We only wanted early stage businesses, but we got conversations with companies with more than 1,000 employees. And we saw that, oh, they have very similar challenges than those early stage businesses. It's just manifesting in a different way. And so we have to adapt our offer, still doing the same thing, to this new context.
Do you think that'll change for you? Like if you imagine yourself 5, 10 years down the line, do you think you'll be equally as passionate about early stage startups? Do you reckon as you become more successful, bigger, like your passion will change?
That's a great question. I think there is some nuance
Yes.
about what is making me passionate about this company that we are building today. There is definitely the fact that we work with early stage companies that um, most of them are trying to reinvent the wheel, going after big markets, trying to really create a breakthrough innovation in their market vertical. That's exciting. That's interesting because we can actually also meet amazing founders doing that, like super ambitious founders. But I thought that I would never be interested by bigger companies. And recently, we started to have some very fruitful conversations with 500 employees, 1,000 employees companies. And actually, there is one thing inside those companies that is super, super, super important, is that if they go out of business, there is a destruction of value. And some people might lose their jobs. Some people might be in a very different position. Those companies already have a great base of customers. Those customers also want to grow. So helping those companies survive in a way is also super exciting, because you see that you have a lot of insights, you have a lot of value, you have a lot of power that you can use to benefit on a broader scale, which you don't always see when you help an early stage startup. Like when you help an early stage startup, there is this big promise of we want to change the world, but eventually they need like 4, 5, 6, 7 years to make it happen. But on bigger companies, it's like today, they already work with great clients, with great companies. They employ hundreds of people around the world. And so if you help them today, you have a direct impact today, not tomorrow, which in a way is also exciting.
Who do you think is more creative? The scrappy startup just scraping together for survival, or this company that's got shit to lose and jobs on the line?
Well, actually, it depends because in those big companies, what we saw is they have some champions that are scrappy, are creative, but unfortunately they can't express it, which is one of the reasons why talents leave big corporations because they are put in a box and they need to respect the playbook and they need to do one thing and then the other. I'm gonna give you an actual example. In I think in a month and a half, we're gonna make an announcement about a hire that we made. And this person was and still is a top performer in a very big company, like over 2,000 employees. And one of the reasons that made him decide to quit and start working with us is being more creative and not being put on a box and not being just a number and actually having ownership and seeing himself evolve, which is quite important here. Small parenthesis. One of my big convictions is we're gonna see in a lot of big companies talent leave because they start to fear for their future self because they see that the company is not adopting AI, is not adopting automation, is still using very old playbook. And they start to smell that in the coming 10 years, this company is going to out of business. And they don't want to be part of a sinking ship. So they want to be part of a company that is actually always reinventing itself or adopting all those new trends, which is one of the reasons why when I have a conversation with a bigger company, this is a strong argument. This is a strong point I'm trying to make. Like, hey guys, you have talents today that are in discussion with smaller companies with a smaller paycheck because they know that this is an investment they need to make if they want to still be hireable in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, because the direction you're taking, as of now, you can still survive, but we're going to get to an inflection point where you're going to be eaten by your competitors and it's going to be the worst day of your life. So that's an important point also to make regarding all those big companies.
It's a really good hot take because I think the common discussion is that because companies are adopting AI, thus people will be out of jobs, right? And you're making the opposite point because a company's not adopting AI and people will leave. What, like in your experience of talking to these companies with 500 employees and above, what percentage of them like actively employ AI to its fullest extent?
Well, um, I don't know if you saw the stats, but 95% of recent like AI implementation in companies were a complete failure, like complete failure. And I find it super interesting because I read a post from a guy on LinkedIn that made a strong point here that the reason why it's a complete failure is not because the activation wasn't great or the use case wasn't interesting, but because company have scattered data. So if we want to make good use of AI today, the most important component is to understand what data we're going to feed it. Are we going to fine tune a model? Are we going to use some very specific set of examples to get better answers? And this comes down to, do we have a knowledge base that is structured inside our company? And what we saw actually is that a lot of companies are trying to go in the direction of AI. Like, even if we say, no, it's a new thing, it's a trend, whatever, no, companies are investing money in training, are investing money in audits, are investing money in actual use cases, in software. They try things. And even when they're deceived by a tool, they still try it. Great example here is the AI UGC ecosystem, hype, whatever. A lot of companies take a sub on a tool, they try it for a month, they hate it. The founder of that tool is doing another lead magnet post on LinkedIn. I'm not going to mention which company, 1.5 months later, and they retake a sub on that tool to retry the AI VC feature. And they're deceived again. And 1.5 months later, they redo the same thing, the same cycle. What this means that it's actually super important is that AI is solving so many big problems on a company scale that they are willing to invest again and again and again until something works. So the real value today, and this could even be a business or an agency or a consultancy, whatever, is to support companies, restructure their data, and build actual plan to implement a use case. You don't necessarily have to be responsible and owner for building the use case, but the value in identifying why something didn't work and how to find the right data in the company, how to refine it, how to restructure it, to redo another activation, to rebuild another workflow, another system, uh, hundreds of millions of dollars are going to be thrown into this in the coming 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. I've got a lot of friends that work in big tech companies and in banks and kind of like established businesses. And the technical debt that they have, where their data is just an absolute mess and a million different folders, not in the right format, is, I mean, it's astounding. So it's 100% an opportunity. In terms of, in your experience, what good data looks like, what
Yeah.
does good data mean?
So good data means if we take an AI workflow, we have one or multiple inputs. We have a logic and different steps to interpret those inputs. And we have either human verification for another set of logic, and then we have an output. At each of these stages, we need to have clean data. Clean data means that if I have an input, I know that this input is in the best structure possible to be interpreted and understood by AI. It's the best format of um, context without volume. So trying to find the right balance between enough context to be understood, but not too much that we have a dilution of understanding from AI. Then we also need data in the interpretation layer, in the logic layer. So what are we giving not as variables, not as input, but as prompt, information, context to an AI model to interpret and use a logic based on the input data. Here we can have examples that we know work. So we know work means that whatever is the goal of that workflow AI agent activation you're building, you are actually 100% sure that those examples delivered on your company KPI. Let's take an actual like LinkedIn content example. You want to make an AI agent write LinkedIn posts. What are the KPIs you judge the performance of a LinkedIn post? You will maybe judge the LinkedIn profile visits you get, the engagement rate, the website visits. Okay. For 2 months, you will write content and you will track those 3 KPIs, and then the best performing content will be used as an example that in that logic prompt that you have. Then you have the human feedback, the human verification. You need another set of data here. What usually doesn't work out when AI is doing this step, this action. So you have a safeguards firewall with questions and with verification point. That's also data. And then you have another step of logic and you have an output. And so the point I was trying to make before is if you come up and have a conversation with a company and you help them solve that funnel and you know at each step, okay, we're going to run this experiment for 1 month to gather better data that we know we can feed AI, this is gold. And so that's what I mean by actual working data.
Let's make that even more practical just now. So I want to jump into what makes you guys special at Earleads, what you do, what the story is, but let's take our company and what we do, what I do at the AI Report, what I do at Upscale. I'll set you a bit of context and then
Yeah.
you see if we can work together and how we work together, okay?
Okay.
So we've been running the newsletter for 2.5 years now, currently sending to a list of 400,000 people every day, 60% open rate. That's the main backbone of our business. From there, around a year ago, we launched like the B2B arm of our business.
Uh,
And since then, we've worked with a lot of big clients, Sherm, Fisher Phillips, Mercer Aesthetics, a lot of kind of 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 employee organizations. And the main thing that we're doing is one, AI audits, but two, like our biggest thing right now is AI training. So going in either virtually or in person and training their organization, training their members, staff, and getting them up to AI competency, or like doing some custom LMS and like education development. So whereas all the information's out there, a lot of these big organizations want it specific to them. How does this apply to me? And we go out and figure out what that is and sell it to them. So in terms of our business, it's all these social media channels, comes down to the newsletter, maybe nurtured more with the podcast, and then that B2B offerings at the bottom.
Okay, great. So one of the first thing I would do is actually use that email list that you already have and clean it to only keep aliases with a business and not like a gmail.com. So we can actually filter out between um, purely consumers to people who work in companies and actually did put their email there. Let's say from the 400,000, we get down to 4,000 emails. Once we have those 4,000 emails, we would enrich them with company domains. So actually find what is the company they are part of. Then we would verify if the company fits your ICP, so your type of ideal clients, which means that we need a bit of context. Okay, based on those offers, for each of them, what are some context we can give about deciding whether or not this could be an eventual client or not. So it means we should verify the size, we should verify the industry, we should verify maybe if they are currently massively hiring in one type of department. So actually trying to enrich our context base to understand whether or not those 4,000 contacts that we have are part of ICP companies. Once this is done, we will eventually maybe drop down to only 3,000 being qualified. Then we will give them a tag based on your different offers. So is it personalized LMS? Is it the audit? Is it actual training? We go there and we do one-to-one sessions, whatever they actually need. Then what we need to do here is to think about what would be the smartest way to target those accounts. One of the first things we would think about is get those domains and create a matched audience on LinkedIn ads. So we can take some of the content that you already wrote and performed and promote it to them. Why? Because we want to increase the number of touch points we have with this base of leads in a cold way. We don't want necessarily to directly start sending them emails. You already send emails with the newsletter. We want now to funnel down the type of things we can do for them. What this means is we will think about a content strategy that is coherent with the B2B part of the business. Like, okay, you have this newsletter going out. Well, now let's produce a different type of content on LinkedIn targeted towards the big pains that you have experienced working with the same category of clients. So if we talk about, there's one thing that I actually saw in this industry, and I think you might have seen the same thing. If you want to have a successful integration of AI, you need to involve champions internally of your company. So one framing could be, hey, we support your company to identify the champions. We train those champions to become AI champions, and then we let them run through all the systems, all the tools, and co-build with us eventual solutions. This should be a LinkedIn post that would be published, then promoted to this set of 3,000 accounts that we have identified. Out of those 3,000 accounts means company, we would also think about, oh, who are the other people, like actually ICP decision makers, job titles, that we want to read our content. Why? Because eventually, at some point, we will send a message to that person that is already following the email list on the newsletter, but they won't be the only decision maker. And so we want other decision makers in the same company to be warmed up by the content that is promoted to them. So that's what we call ABM, so account-based marketing. We have accounts, companies, we have people in these companies. We identify pillars, narrative of content that would emulate and resonate with them based on all the offers that you have, and then we promote that content to them. Then what we will do is add two automations. One automation that will scrap your LinkedIn profile visits and qualify them, and one automation that will disanonymize website visitors. Only works for the US, can do that in Europe. RGPD is against it, but at least if you target the US and out of those 3,000, if all are in the US, that's great. So here, why we do that? We do that because the profile visits or the website visit is a super high intention that is personalized to you. If we were to monitor, let's say, if a company hired a head of marketing, you and I have access to the same information. So it's a signal, yes, but it's not a personalized signal. If this same person visited your profile on LinkedIn and not mine, it means that there is a direct interest toward you, your business, what you are doing. And so we would scrap the profile visits, qualify them. And this is when we start outreaching people and we want to have conversations with them because now we are confident that, oh, they're ICP. They've seen my content multiple times. They're part of my LinkedIn ads audience. They're part of my newsletter. Now I want to have a conversation with them. But then there is also some kind of workflow process on how do you message them. It's not just, hey, I saw you visit my profile, let's have a conversation. But this is when we use the other type of enrichment that we've had about their company, the stage they're at, if they are hiring, if they already tried an AI activation and didn't work out, every type of information we can gather, and then we propose something valuable to them. So in a nutshell, I think I took 5 minutes to explain that. That's how we would use the base of the newsletter. to enrich and qualify contacts for the business part, the B2B part of your business, qualify people, build a content strategy to make valuable information in front of their eyes. So having multiple touch points without being too pushy, and then qualifying people who showed another intent and reach out to them to start conversations.
It feels like growth and leads gen agencies are plenty. What is it about your process or what you do that's unique, or why do people that kind of buy from you once or work with you once stay with you?
Yeah. So actually, today we have a very unique offer on the market. I haven't seen another agency doing exactly the same thing than us. Is that we mix content creation, ads, and outreach on LinkedIn. We do the three on LinkedIn. So we do not just write content. We do not just run ads. We do not just run outreach. Our offer is LinkedIn go-to-market engineering with an all-bound approach. We define the best content strategy and we write the content for the founders. We build the match audiences. We build the tracking systems on Play. We monitor every signal. And we also scrap automatically website visitors, profile visitors, qualify them, and then run outreach campaigns. So that's the heart of our business model today. It's a done for you offer for B2B businesses where we do the content, the ads, and the outreach. On the back end, what helps us also is that, well, it's been now 2 years that we've been doing that. So we've built a lot of insights, a lot of SOPs, but also we walk the talk and we built a lot of automations, a lot of AI agents that lets us do things in a very unique way. I'm going to give you an example here. But every time we onboard a company, one of the first steps is to find subreddits with viral posts threads inside of them that we can repurpose as content ideas for that client we work with. The reason why we do this is one of the main metrics, one of the main pillars to make a content strategy successful is authenticity. And the best source of authenticity and real content today is Reddit. So going through that path lets us define the best stories, the best paying experience by people in that industry that we can then repurpose into actual working content for the company we work with.
You mentioned building a lot of agents, employing a lot of AI, building a lot of processes. What's your balance between agents that work for you versus humans? And how do you see that changing over time?
Yeah. Actually, the way we think about AI agents and the future of work, the future of hiring is humans will be responsible more and more for orchestration and verification, and AI will be the executive layer. There are a lot of tasks today. Like I really, I invite everyone listening to us to do this one day when they work. Take a piece of paper, take your iPad, your phone, whatever, and during the day, every time you do a task, just write like, is my capacity to analyze and interpret things used here or not? If it's not used and it's super mechanical, repetitive, well, you don't have to do it. It's not valuable. Your time should be
Mhm.
spent elsewhere. And I'm also completely against the narrative that says, well, we're going to integrate AI, we're going to work 3 hours or 2 hours per day. No, you're going to still work the same amount of hours, but you're just going to work them on higher added value tasks. And the reason for that is that we live in a capitalist society and that we try to keep evolving and building new things, and there's always like another thing to do. So it's not like we're going to use AI to work less. You're going to use AI to work smarter, differently, on better tasks. So what we actually do is every time we have a new process that we run, we translate that process into an SOP. So that's the input, that's the logic, that's the output. What are we doing in the input? What are we doing in the logic? What are we doing in the output? What can we delegate to AI? How can we ensure it's the quality is great when we delegate it to AI? And if we say that, okay, well, we can get something 100% workable if we delegate that to AI, we need to have a human at one step of this process. What is that step in the process? And what is the human responsible for here? And the more we move forward, the more we update those SOPs, the more we have new models, the more we are removing the human from some tasks and adding the human to other tasks. So that's exactly how we approach it.
Who are the AI champions in your organization? Why do you respect them, and how's their skill set different from yours?
Yeah, well, actually, it's quite interesting because we're all doing that at Earleads. That's actually one of the main Like when I hire someone, that's part of the reason why I hire them, and that's a responsibility, and that's like everyone should be owner of that. I'm gonna try to be super clear here to why I'm saying here. I'm saying that when you hire people on an organization, you hire them because they need to be responsible for some operational task or some strategic task. So they have a verticalized ownership on something in your company. When you hire them for that, if day one they're not incentivized and aligned on the fact that AI is coming after a part of those responsibilities, um, you're having someone working against you in your own organization because they will be frightened from the fact that they can use AI to replace themselves. And if you are not aligned on, oh, we're always going to find a new thing for you to do, or you will always step up and keep improving and orchestrate all those AI agents, your company is doomed from day one because you're like everyone that works with you is going to work against you at some point because they don't want you to find out that there is a tool that can do this just like them in a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the time. And maybe they just want to chill out and be part of what I said earlier, like people who want to use AI to work 2 hours or 3 hours per day. But that's also understandable because, well, if you do not incentivize people in a way where if the company grows and if the company makes more revenue and if the company is more projectized, they get a fair share of it. Why they have zero incentives to tell you that there is an AI that can do one thing better than them. So there's also this question: everyone is owner on AI, and everyone is incentivized to find more efficient ways to automate things.
I have a two-parter in response to that. One, you're looking for people with high ownership and high initiative. How do you identify that in the interview process? Is it more a reflection of their past work experience? Is it their body language? Is it the words they use? What are you looking for? Is it follow up? Is it side projects? Tell me about the factors of that first. And then secondly, just more macro version of this. I've thought about what you've said a lot, just myself in the past. This idea that we moving forward need people with more initiative and more ambition and high ownership as like an internal skill. But my thesis is that the majority of people aren't that. I think that like a very, very, very small percentage of people actually embody those qualities. So moving forward, where that's the only skill that's valuable, I'm like, where are these people displaced to? And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we've just built jobs that are automatic and for robots, right? And we're trying to force them into that. Maybe people are naturally creative, but it just doesn't seem that way to me.
Yeah. Well, first part of your question, actually, talent come to you. It's very, very hard to outreach talents. And one thing that helped me a lot is building public. So when I started the company 2 years ago, every week I was sharing a building public post on LinkedIn with a video where I was sharing everything that was happening for me. Like, okay, well, this is a challenge, this is a success, this is my vision, this is the direction I'm taking. And the first person I hired back in think it was April, May, was May 2024. So 4 or 5 months after I started the company. Um, he actually came to me. Like I mentioned in a post, I reached maximum capacity alone. I need help with operation, and I'm gonna start looking for someone. It was a soft mention, but this person was following me for multiple months, and so he reached out to me and he proposed his help, and he was like, "Well, I don't know if I can be of great help for you. I'm willing to do like free work for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, and just see if there is a way for us to collaborate." So that's something else. That's another point. High ownership people, they will come to you and they will buy your vision before they receive a single penny from you because they trust your ability as a leader. And that's also the role of founders is to put your vision out there and to be very vocal about it. Because the more vocal you are, the more you're going to become a magnet for people that think just like you and for people who reach the same conclusions as you did. And this is how you hire talent. Like every time I try to outreach talent, complete flop, wasn't able to hire them. And every time these people came to me, it was the exact same process. They reacted to a post where I mentioned that we are growing. We get on a call, great vibe. That's something important. We really like talking to each other. There is something great in the communication part of the call, and then this moves to a part-time collaboration. So Sometimes it's just like a test task, like one thing where I just want their input. I just want to test how they think. And like this could be like a 2 hours, 1 hour, 3 hours task. And then after that, we move to a part-time collaboration, paid one. So for a month, 2 months, 3 months, this person is going to be responsible for this set of tasks. And we're actually benchmarking each other here. Because one thing that a lot of people miss is it's not because you, let's say, you raise funds, you have customers, that your company is sexy. Most of the time, it's not the case. It's just your perception of it. You might be in the most boring market possible. So hiring is a seduction in both ways. You want to seduce the talent, and the talent wants to seduce you. And as long as you're playing that game, you're moving forward in the right direction. The moment one of these two um, stops that game, it actually means that it's not going to go in the right direction. So it's always this seductive process between the two to ensure that you are maximizing the information each integrates to make the rightful decision. And it's only when you're sure about it that you make the call, and it's a snap decision, like it's instinctive. You know it, you know that this is the right person that I need to hire. Regarding your second point, it really depends on like why you are hiring. Are you hiring for are you are hiring a brain or are you hiring hands? My whole point is that we're in a world today where if you're just hiring hands, you don't have to hire. You can delegate most of that. And what you can do is hire for brain and let those people manage the final 5 or 10% that AI can do itself, and they can have more ownership this way. They can be paid in a better way, and you don't end up with people you don't pay that much who manage a process that is super, super niched. That's actually one thing on our side. Like, I rather us being overstretched for a period of time until we find another person to hire or another way to automate a task or a better way to run a process rather than hire someone just to fit in because I think that, oh, we can delegate that. And I'm saying this because I made a mistake. Uh, 2 times, hired people, hands didn't want to pay that much. Yeah, horrendous, horrible experience. I learned it the hard way and was like, okay, well, I stop. We don't do that. That's not the way. We hire smart people. We train them for a period of time. So we pay them to be trained during that fractional work. They get paid, but 50% of that fractional time, it's them being trained by us. It's them getting feedback from us. And so we are sure the moment we want to pull the trigger and hire them that, oh, we are aligned on everything. They understand the business. They understand the logic. We can make the call.
One more thing, alignment. How important are incentives to these people, and how do you incentivize?
Yeah. Uh, Incentives are super, super important. They're primordial. But what is more important is for them to be for them to feel that they are actually part of the campaign. How do we structure that at Earleads, and what was the logic I tried to build was I'm trying to hire people like me. And my logic was, what would I have wanted when I was part of those startups? What would have been the deal that I would have accepted to stay working with them and to be part of a company that is not mine? And my first conclusion was, well, you want to be paid to have a great salary, a great base. You don't want that base to be capped by any rules. Okay. One thing that I hated the most in the VC backed ecosystem is, well, sorry, but this is the type of salary. That's the salary range that we have. And we can't go on top of it because then our VCs are going to be like, hey, sorry, but you are going again, like on top of that range, you can hire someone else. Why are you doing that? And so that was one of the first things. So uncapped salary, but uncapped means that it's evolving with threshold. If we reach that revenue milestone, this is the new revenue. If we hit that milestone, this is the new revenue. Let's say the business makes $10 million with a 50% gross margin in 3 or 5 years. I don't mind having someone in the company making 40 or 50 grand per month if they actually have that much of an impact in the company, which is also something else. Like, you need to put the incentive, but in the same time, you need to align the set of responsibilities and the reason why they're getting this incentive. And as much as both of us are aligned, well, how we structured it is uncapped salary, bonuses distributed every 3 months. So it's a profit sharing, and like that profit sharing percentage can become equity if at some point we decide to sell the company. The reason why I made this is because you want people to be incentivized with cash on a month-to-month basis. You don't want them to think about how they're going to pay their rent. You want people to have a 12-week year and to get something back in short sprints. Like they know, oh, in 3 months, I'm going to get a bonus. The company grew in 3 months. I don't have to wait a year to receive it. I can like benefit from that in the 3 following months. So every time they think about it or they're a bit frustrated, it's like, oh, well, but actually that's fine. The company is growing and I know that I'm going to receive something. So I'm a bit overstretched this week in work, but I know why I'm doing that. So they know like they're receiving something back. And they're also incentivized if there is a big breakthrough with the company and at some point there is an opportunity to do secondary or to sell it completely by owning a part of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of stuff you mention, I take it back to my anecdotal experience of where I got to and where I am today. And I remember always feeling very, very frustrated in startups I worked with where I didn't feel respected and I didn't feel heard and I didn't feel listened to and I was never given this space to succeed. And the first time ever that I was given real room to succeed and grow and kind of use my own initiative, everything just exploded from there. It was that moment where like incentives were allowed and I was given a bit of freedom and I was trusted to go and perform and not put in a box. And then that was the big catalyst to where I am now. Everything else before that, I felt frustrated, I felt upset, I felt disrespected. And I think naturally people that want a lot for themselves and people that are ambitious, they notice that like that. People don't want to be put in a box. I want to I want to just get some actual background on this because I'm always interested to hear why the name Earleads, why the branding.
Yeah. So actually, Earleads, it's when I decided to stop the agency GPT, which was more like the first positioning. First positioning was we build systems for lead generation and content creation, and we give them to you through GPTs. So we create GPTs for you, and you have to run those systems. Actually, what happened is I launched the offer. I think it was the 6th or the 7th of January, 2024, and in like after that launch that I prepared for 2 months, I had like 30 conversations lined up with people that were what I thought ICP. So after those 30 conversations, I closed one business. So it took me 12 days to close the first client, which was amazing. But out of all the other conversations, I didn't close a single one. And this is very bad, which means that there was a misalignment there. And one of the feedback I got is, well, you're doing like lead generation, however you want to call it, that's lead generation. I don't want to run systems. I don't want to have a system that I need to perform. I rather pay you on a month-to-month basis, like how the retainer business model, and you being the owner of whatever you do, content creation, ads, outreach. I don't care. That's the promise you have for me. Do it. I pay you on a month-to-month basis. And that moment, I was like, okay, well, let's do the switch. We are a lead generation agency, and we are a lead generation agency for early stage businesses. So leads early and leads lead. So that's yeah,
Ah, okay. Interesting. That's not what I thought it would be.
yeah,
It's
yeah. Well,
really not.
actually, that's why people actually say ear leads, like ears.
Yeah.
But when I decided to choose the name, I didn't like think about it this way. And I was like, well, it makes sense. Also, like ear leads, people can interpret it in the way that's fine. And for the actual branding and colors and everything, I just wanted to have something premium. Um, and have something that's also very, very straightforward. Like if people visit our website, we have a great VSL there to present the service, present the solution. And what I wanted here, I wanted people from the early stage startup ecosystem to see that we have the same vibes as them. And one of the things you see a lot in early stage startups is marketing videos that are completely going against any common uh, best practices that the head of marketing with 20 years or 25 years would say you should do. So that's why it's really like a vibe that we want early stage businesses to adhere to. But in the same time, what happened is that bigger companies with people that also have this vibe but are a bit locked in this environment, they also feel, oh, okay, I want to have a conversation with this company. I want to have a conversation with this person because I can feel we have the same vibe, we have the same taste, and we can understand each other.
I mean, you have so much content out there, especially with the podcast that you're doing as well, right? You have so many conversations. Talk to me about that. So you're talking to these founders that are moving from zero to one. What are the kind of commonalities that you've noticed amongst excellent entrepreneurs?
Yeah. Actually, most of them, like the best ones, those with the clearer vision, they all are not just obsessed about what they're trying to build, but they experienced it in the past. And
Mm.
that's for me one super important element when you try to build a company. I'm not saying you can build a company if you didn't experience the pain, but just know when you build a company that one of your competitors experienced the pain for 10 years. And this means that they have an edge, a moat, leverage on you. So if you did experience some pains in the past and you know them deep down, well, maybe try to build something in that industry. So that's the first thing. Second thing is they know when to put their ego in off mode and listen to people who are either ahead of them in their journey or people with some practical experience in one area that they know they can benefit from. There is a founder I had a conversation with one time about like everything related to go-to-market engineering, and we were having like an actual conversation. And every time I started talking, he just instantly shut and listened to me, and I can see his eyes. I can see that he's actually taking notes of everything I'm sharing. There is no ego in the conversation. There is only growth and there is only experience. So that's the second thing. Third thing that is also like it's also important as a founder is actually taste. Like they did something in their life or they were passionate about something where taste is super important. Um, one of the founders that I admire the most is and was a video producer. Like he created his own movies for a period of time, and so he knows what emotions, how to emulate emotions, how to tell a story. He's a great storyteller, and those things are super important if you want to create a big company. Because being a great storyteller, having great taste, means that you're going to use the right arguments to let you raise funds first, hire talent, and convince customers in the early stage. And another point regarding convincing customers, also, which would be our fourth point here, is being super optimistic about the future of your solution to the point where you have no troubles selling something to a company, knowing that you don't have the features or everything available today. Because
Mm.
you trust not just you, but you also trust your team that it's going to be something that will happen in the next 2, 3, 4 months. So these 4 points are the most common traits I found in those hyper ambitious founders with very, very great potential. I think some of them are in the right path to build billion-dollar companies.
With that, if they're on the path to building billion-dollar companies, out of the conversations you've had, what are some things that people have said that have maybe fundamentally changed what you do or how you do it?
Yeah. Um, actually, there is one thing that one of those founders wrote in a LinkedIn post is to think in systems. And I think it's super important today because if we go back to what I said earlier, we have humans that will orchestrate AI agents. If you want someone to orchestrate something, orchestration means managing a system. So they need to know how to think in systems. When you hire someone or when you try to build a solution, you need to break it down into multiple variable things. And so if you can think in systems and know how each component of this system is glued to the other and how it's going to influence the other, it's going to be super hard for you to build something meaningful. And it's going to be super hard for you to hire people, close people, to build a great story about what you are doing. So really thinking in system. That's one. Second thing is more a learning that I've had through experience, which is sleep deprivation is the worst thing you could do for your company, because there is no way in the world you're going to perform as much as you could, especially in those high levels. Like when you really try to build something crazy, something big, sometimes it's a matter of one decision. Like literally, sometimes one decision can have a crazy ROI on what you do. Like Pareto rule, 20% of your actions are going to be responsible for 80% of your results. If you don't sleep well and your brain can't think well, those 20% decisions, tasks that you need to do are gonna be less good than they could if you had your full night of sleep. So one of the things that I try to say to entrepreneurs, like friends who try to build a company, is yes, be obsessed, but be obsessed until 11 or midnight, and be obsessed again at 7 or 7:30, and you're gonna get more done over the course of a month than if you don't sleep for 2 days or 3 days and you have 3 hours or 4 hours sleep. You can do that from time to time based on the rest, based on the sprints, but your baseline should always be I protect my sleep.
On that point, explain France, Spain, Morocco for the audience.
Explain what?
France, Spain, Morocco.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna explain that. So, I live between three countries: France, Spain, and Morocco, and each of them means something different for me. When I'm in France, in Paris, it's build time. I'm building things. I'm focused here. Why? Because it's rainy most of the time. Because I don't have many things that I can do that I enjoy on a personal level. So for me, it's building. I need to build things here. This is where I do my sprints. I'm currently in Paris, so that's why I'm super laser focused, and I have actually the time to run the podcast with you. So it's build time. When I finish those sprints, what happens usually is I need some time to reflect. I need to get some energy back, and I need to change my routine. This is when I go to Spain. Spain for me means that creativity, um, a bit of rest, getting a bit of energy back, and thinking about, okay, what is the next milestone? What is the next thing we need to achieve? What is the plan to make it happen? And Morocco is my home country. Every time I go there is for a reset. When I go there and I spend some time with my family, for me it's reset. I work when I'm there, but the vibe and how I'm feeling is reset mode. I'm putting everything back to baseline so I can get back either to France or to Spain based on what I'm trying to do. But I do go also to other places where I really feel that I'm off. I'm off there. But yeah, this is how I approach those three countries.
Yeah, you're not limited to just 3 countries. You do have a
Yeah, no,
passport. You're allowed to go to other
yeah,
countries. um, Something I'm just really curious about, and I feel as if I have an answer for you, or I'm kind of tuned into, but maybe not. I'm really curious about between all the people that you speak to and you admire about these different entrepreneurs, like what is it you actually admire about them? Like what's the fundamental principles? My answer for you, based on our conversation, and I could be wrong, is that you admire kind of deep expertise, you admire obsession, you admire someone that does their fucking homework and like hones into a problem, really understands it. That's what I'm getting. But tell me if I'm wrong and how I'm wrong.
yeah. Well, that's I think the main thing that I admire the most. The second thing that I admire um, is when they take care of their health as much
Mm.
as they take care of their business, because that's one of the most important thing for me. Like taking care of my health and approaching it in the right way. So I know that the discipline and the consistency I built that helped me get where we are today with Earleads comes a lot from my sports background and the fact that I have a routine that I eat healthy. I try to get my hours of sleep, and I know how much this helps. Like personal anecdote here, I usually try to train midday because I feel like I have a second day. Like I'm starting a second day. Everything that might have been stressful during the morning, every interaction, every bit of anxiety that I have built up, after a session of training, might be running, might be CrossFit, might be gym, whatever, when I'm back, I'm focused again, and I feel that I have a second day. So I might be biased, but if I was going to invest my own money on some founders, show me your routine outside of work, and this will define the check that I'm going to sign. If you're obsessed about an industry, of course, there are some main variables that you need to track. If you have this additional one, I know that you have it in you because that's one of the reasons why so many VC back college athletes, whatever, because they know that they have a consistency. They know that they approach failure in a healthy way, which is also super important. And they approach failure also in an analytical way. Like, okay, we failed this campaign. Why did we fail this campaign? We launched this feature. Why did it fail? And they don't let things go through their heart. Like, in a way, yes, for them to feel motivated, energized, and really want to succeed again. But they know that they can analyze and break this down to eventually iterate on their positioning, their product, to find another thing to test. And you know that they're going to be obsessed enough on the long run to crack something at some point.
You sparked just like an interesting thought in my head there and something I think about a lot. I'm in Montreal just now. I want to be in the US long term. And when you're talking about the idea of mindset, the idea of processing failure, I feel as if you mentioned college sports as one thing there. College sports, college athletes, entrepreneurs in the US, there's so much conversation around mindset, how to process failure, responsibility, what does your reputation mean, stuff like that. I'm from the UK, it's all just fucking sarcasm and jokes and dry humor. Is it the same in Morocco? How do you feel about that balance?
Yeah, actually, it's very, very different. If we take the entrepreneurial part, it's it seems a lot risky because there is a lot of social status that is taken into account. It's in a way very, very similar to Japan. People will give more they will give more respect to someone who's, let's say, part of the government, or someone who's an amazing doctor or an amazing engineer in one of the top 5, 10 companies in the country, than to an entrepreneur who built a lead gen agency, helping early stage businesses get conversation with CMOs in retail companies, for example. See, like it's not the same. But like, you will get some respect, but it's not the same thing on the social level. And I think a lot of this runs back to how people approach money and what is important in a country. If we take a country where religion is super important, that is actually part of the government, like religion is accepted and it's recognized as part of the state, well, uh, then there are some other things more valuable than trying to build $1 billion company. There's your faith. There's how you approach a relationship with people. There's how you help actually people, like really help people do better things. I have a great anecdote to tell you here. I have a very, very good friend of mine. Um, his wife just finished school in the number one engineering school in France, 5 years, and she decided to become a doctor now. So
Yeah.
she's back to ground zero. The reason for that is she wants to have like a real positive impact. Like, she really wants to just to help people. And um, depending on the country you're at, people will value different things because of the cultural beliefs, and because of, I think that religion plays a big role in the value in each of those two things, and how you being an entrepreneur is valued on it. But things are changing actually in Morocco. For one reason is that some of the biggest entrepreneurs in the country started being vocal actually on LinkedIn, sharing their story, doing like webinars, being invited in podcasts. And so it's showing to the population that there is another path to be successful and to have an impact. So for me, it's a question of information. So how do people know it's possible? Cultural beliefs and support. The if we were to compare the VC ecosystem to give money to founders in Morocco in comparison to other countries, well, it's like one of the things I said in that entrepreneurship podcast I was invited to was that uh, in Morocco, before they decide to invest in your company, they're going to ask you for revenue. they're going to ask you for a 10-15% growth month to month for users with low churn and high retention. Well, if I have all of those things, I don't need your money. Like, why would I raise funds with you?
Mm.
I'm already well ahead the curve, and I don't need your money. So there is this thing that is very, very linked to risk taking, and yeah, it's multivariable thing.
I want to finish off with some quick fire questions. So they're actually reasonably complex, and I have no right in asking you to summarize these into 30-second answers. But if you could, that would be amazing, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
You're open about building public and shutting down experiments like agency GPTs. How do you personally process failure? And is it something you move through quickly, or does it leave a deeper mark?
Um, I process it quickly. I break it down into what I tried, what I was looking for, what happened, why did this happen, and I directly get into the next thing. Like, okay, well, it happened. Next, I'm not gonna let that go into my heart. I'm not gonna let this define me. I am more than my business. I am more than the success and failures of my business. So keep building.
What's something about you, habits, values, beliefs, that would surprise people who only know your professional life?
Um, if I don't train, I can't work. Literally, like I can't. People see me like do things, work, being like consistent, whatever. If I don't train, don't give me a computer. Monkey brain. I'm not gonna be able to work.
You set a goal to build a seven-figure agency. I imagine you have goals that are far beyond that as well in terms of scope. But beyond just revenue and milestones, what does success look like for you personally?
Success for me means that I'm always able to spend time with my family and people I care deeply about. I'm always able to let my patients express themselves. I'm always able to find time to learn new things. And this comes from, of course, being financially independent and having like kind of fuck you money. And this doesn't mean like a crazy amount, but an amount where it's not directly linked to something like you can work on a crazy M&A firm, make 7 figures per year, but you don't have this type of money because you have a boss, you have coworkers, you have deals you need to work on. So that's for me success: family, patience, learning, and then the rest is good as well.
This last question, I encourage you to take 10 seconds to think about it before you answer. Okay. This
Okay.
is my last question. Why do you do what you do?
I think there is a very deep desire to prove that being young in this era today and being hungry and being focused and putting your ego away, listening to people, surrounding yourself with people more ahead in their journey can lead a long way. And that the common path that we've been fed for decades of work in a big company, have a career, and eventually when you're 35, 40, 45, one or two mortgage over your head, two or three kids, married, then you can eventually become an entrepreneur. Um, I think that one of the main motivation is going against that narrative and proving that you can do whatever you want to do if you give yourself the proper tools, proper surrounding, and that you're patient enough.
I'm a huge proponent of independent and original thought. And it feels like the common thread for our entire conversation is that.
Yeah.
That's what it
Well,
feels like. And it's
I'm super
refreshing.
happy then. Yeah, I'm super happy then.
Alden, two things. One, thank you for making the time and coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And two, if people want to find out more about who you are and what you do, how did they go about doing that?
Well, LinkedIn, Othmane.Khadri or Earleads.com, our websites. Do not hesitate to come by, say hi. If you have any questions about anything that I said in this podcast, I'm super happy to have a conversation with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.